Let's see if this one's as much longer to the Six Flags article as Cedar Point was to the Cedar Fair one. It's home to the iconic Sky Tower, the former tallest and fastest roller coaster in the world. It's the largest park in the Six Flags chain, and it's the thrill capital of the world. This is the story of Six Flags Magic Mountain. When the park opened in 1971, admission was $5 for adults and $3.50 for guests between 3 and 12. Accounting for only inflation, that's $31 and $22 respectively today. For comparison, the modern price is $55 at minimum, nearly double the inflation prices. The park is located in Valencia, Santa Clarita, California, a distant suburb located about 40 miles north of Los Angeles. Due to the distance from Los Angeles, the park was serviced by the Greyhound bus line from both Los Angeles and cities north of Santa Clarita. Tickets to the park were available for purchase at the bus station, making getting into the park a little bit smoother of an experience. While the park did open with only 33 attractions to its name, they weren't exactly low-quality rides, since many of them were designed by Era Developments back when they were really only known for attractions for Disneyland. The attractions there on opening day included Gold Rusher, a steel coaster that's still there today, Log Jammer Blog Flume, which was removed in 2011 and replaced with Full Throttle, a launch coaster, the Sky Tower, an observation tower that currently sits standing but not operating. I can't find out why it's in this state, but I hope it's operational soon. Grand Prix, which was a car ride very similar to Autopia at Disneyland. The ride was removed in 1986, and its former location is now the site of Tidal Wave, a shoot-the-shoot ride. El Bumpo, or Bumper Boats, which closed in 1979. The former location of the ride is now the site of Riddler's Revenge. And the Grand Carousel, one of the first rides you came across in the park, and still do today. When it first opened, the park had 3 transportation rides, only one of which still remains, that being the Helpful Honda Express, a funicular railroad or cable railway. There is also the Metro, a monorail system they used to loop the park to 3 stations, and Eagle's Flight, a sky ride that also had 3 stations, one of which can still be seen on the way up to Ninja from Gold Rush or Superman. It's currently used as a haunted house. Another opening day attraction was the Showcase Theater, later named to the Golden Bear Theater sometime in the 90s. This attraction was perhaps one of the more notable non-ride attractions at the park, first hosting a show by Barbra Streisand, who had at that point won 4 Grammy Awards and an AGVA Georgie Award. And she was the only first of many headline performers who would play at the theater and at the park. In 1971, 13 years before Six Flags would gain the IP, Magic Mountain was given the rights to use the Looney Tunes characters by Warner Brothers, though they would not use the IP after the 1971 season due to the creation of park original mascots, Trolls. The King Troll, King Blop, also known as King Troll, Bleep, Bloop, and simply the Wizard, became the park's mascot and the most memorable part of pre-Six Flags Magic Mountain. The costumes for the mascots were provided by All Kings Productions until New Year's Eve 1972. Quite the fitting name for the situation, if you ask me. The mascot kept being used until the 1985 season, making way for the Looney Tunes, which Six Flags had gained the rights to the year before. Dread it, run from it. Bugs Bunny arrives all the same. Or should I say, the park's second roller coaster was added in 1973, Mountain Express, a Schwarzkopf Wildcat that was removed in 1982 and moved to Magic Landing, a park in El Paso in 1984 and renamed to Wildcat. Wow, real creative there. From there, it was moved to Bosque Magico, a park in Guadalupe, Mexico, in 1993, though it is unknown when it was removed from El Paso. The coaster was removed from Bosque Magico sometime before 2006, and its current situation is unknown. 1974 saw the addition of several new spinning rides in a section that would later be called Back Street. The area is located, as one can imagine, in the back of the park. It is now the DC area, with 2 of the rides still remaining. Himalaya and Electric Rainbow now being Flash, Speed Force, and Wonder Woman Lasso of Truth, respectively. 1975 would see the addition of a new train ride, the Grand Centennial Railway. It took riders from Back Street to Spillikin Corners. The modern locations would be the DC area and the new West Coast Racers coaster, making it a long ride. The locomotive of the train also had a vertically mounted boiler. Another railway at Magic Mountain was the 99 Steam Train, also known as the Train to Trolleywood. It ran from the park's opening in 1971 to 1980. The route of the 99 took riders on a round trip from around where the Looney Tunes section is today to where Twisted Colossus stands. Colossus did overlap with the 99 from 1978 to 1980, but the train would be closed in October of 1980. Moving on, 1976 has marked the opening date of the Great American Revolution. The Schwarzkopf coaster was the first permanent modern roller coaster with a vertical loop. Though others before it had vertical loops, they were all removed due to safety concerns, but Revolution still stands today. When it opened, the coaster didn't have the immense amounts of trees and shrubbery surrounding it, allowing riders back then to see the layout and know exactly what to expect from the ride, whereas now riders can't predict exactly what the ride layout will be outside of course, the vertical loop, because that's still very prominent when you're walking around. Apparently it was so cool that Universal filmed a movie at the park, with Revolution being the centerpiece, 1977's Roller Coaster. 1978 saw the opening of the largest racing wooden coaster of its time, Colossus, which would promptly be closed and redone due to issues with the ride being too rough. When it reopened, while some ride elements had been removed to make way for block brakes, the coaster was much smoother and now had the ability to race. I don't know why it didn't have that before. Wikipedia made a point to say that it could now race thanks to the block brakes. In the mid-80s, one of the trains would run backward, though due to changes in the ride system, it was no longer possible on a constant basis and had to stop running one train reversed until the 90s. Before 2015, one train ran backward during Fright Fest, using the spare cars from Cyclone, a former wooden coaster where Apocalypse now sits. But in 2015, the coaster would see an overhaul by Rocky Mountain Construction, changing the layout and adding many ride elements that were previously impossible. The new coaster was coined Twisted Colossus and is now considered by some to be the best coaster in the park. Colossus would be the last major ride built by an independent Magic Mountain. For in 1979, the park was purchased by Six Flags and quickly had a name change in 1980 to Six Flags Magic Mountain. In 1979, Roaring Rapids was constructed and a midway was built connecting Spillikin Corners to the path leading to Revolution, allowing guests to make a full circuit around the park for the first time. In 1985, previously mentioned events finally caught up to the timeline of events I'm talking about, with the renaming of the kiddie area to Bugs Bunny World, and the Trolls began to be phased out. The park also built a large stand-up coaster called Shockwave in 1986, which seems like a big investment, but not big enough since it was closed in 1988 and moved to Great Adventure as a part of a ride rotation system the company was doing at the time to keep the parks interesting without actually building anything. Where was the ride set, you asked? Why, Astroworld, and it is now in storage. 1987, Backshoe is rethemed, but not to DC, that's later. Himalaya was renamed Subway, and Electric Rainbow was renamed Turbo. There was also a dance club in the back, which was also renamed from Decibels to After Hours, and allowed locals to stay in the section for another 2 hours after closing to enjoy the club. That lasted a season, one season. Magic Mountain would see another first with the opening of Ninja in 1988. The ride was built by Aerodynamics and was the first suspended swinging coaster on the West Coast, and has gone through very few changes since it opened, actually, only replacing the wheels of the trains and a bit of repainting because paint wears. Aerodynamics built some really durable rides now that I think about it. 1991, a new coaster was built called Cyclone, PSY Clone, named after the famous wooden coaster at Coney Island. And with the coaster came the retheme of Spillikin Corners to Cyclone Bay, a mostly cosmetic retheme due to the previous theme relying on retail that had been removed before the construction of the coaster. While the coaster would be damaged by the Northridge earthquake in 1994, the park had already begun to gain a repertoire of large-scale coasters by the time. 1993 saw heavy retheming of certain areas of the park, such as High Sierra territory around the Showcase Theater, having the theater's name changed to the Golden Bear Theater, which is what it is still today. 1993 also saw the end of live rap concerts in the park after a riot broke out due to overbooking one of them. The park blamed the riots, which saw hundreds of guests flock to the park and vandalize the property, on the rap music. Police had to arrive in riot gear to get the guests out of the park, and the park had to close early in order to repair everything overnight. But the park operated normally the next day, so, it's good. In 1994, the time came for Magic Mountain, as it would for many other Six Flags park, with the addition of a B&M inverted coaster called Batman the Ride, beginning the theme transition of Backstreet to the DC area that we know and love today. Meanwhile, and by meanwhile I mean 1 year later, Hurricane Harbor opened, as well as the addition of a slingshot called Dive Devil the next year, which requires an extra feat to ride for no reason. Superman the Escape would open in 1997. Designed by Intamin, the coaster would accelerate from 0 to 100 miles an hour in 7 seconds and then climb a 41-story tower, opening as the tallest and fastest roller coaster in the world. It was rethemed in 2011 with a new paint scheme and a new name, Superman Escape from Krypton, as well as reversing the train, now having guests facing backward for the launch. Another world record, 1998, Riddler's Revenge, the tallest and fastest stand-up coaster at the time. 2000 saw the first coaster added under the new ownership of Premier Parks, the hypercoaster Goliath, built by Giovanola. Quick fact about Giovanola, by the way, they went bankrupt in 2004, but that was after they had existed for 116 years. They were founded in 1888 as a steel forging shop, but later went on to general engineering and manufacturing, and then they died. Back to Magic Mountain. 2001 was slated to be the year of 3 new coasters, one of which being a kiddie coaster. Out of the 3 coasters planned for the year, only the kiddie coaster, Goliath Jr., was open on time. The other 2, Deja Vu and X, opened late. Deja Vu opened in late 2001 and X in 2002, making 2001 the year of 1 successful coaster and many, many technical issues. X's opening wasn't unimportant, however, as it was the world's first 4th-dimensional coaster and still the only one in North America wherein the seats will spin a full 360 degrees. X was able to operate briefly on the 7th of January 2002 before closing due to more technical issues. The coaster would open fully in August of 2002 and operate normally until 2008, wherein it saw a major retheme to the now open X2. By the way, X was also built by Aerodynamics. How did these guys go out of business? They make cool stuff. In 2003, Magic Mountain would tie with Cedar Point for the most coasters in the world for the first time via the B&M floorless coaster Scream, which is still there, so it's awesome. Well, the tie was lost soon after. In 2006, the B&M flying coaster Tatsu opened as the largest scale B&M flying coaster built at the time. It tied Magic Mountain and Cedar Point again, though this claim has been argued due to another coaster at the park, Flashback, standing but not operating at the time. However, the park was put in danger in 2006 as Six Flags was going under and was looking to sell many of its lowest performing parks, including Magic Mountain. The possible sale of Magic Mountain was not attributed to lowering attendance, though. Attendance did drop between 2005 and 2006, but that's not the reason. The rowdy nature of many of the guests at the time, which collided with Six Flags' goal of being seen as family-friendly at the time, was the cause. By fall of that year, Six Flags said the park was up for sale and clarified that it was not to be sold to a real estate developer who would seek to close the park. Rather, they wished to sell to a company who would continue the operation. A few buyers came up, such as Cedar Fair and Anheuser-Busch, though their offers never reached the asking price for the park. If you ask me, they should have sold it to a real estate developer, because that's how Premier Parks came into existence, and that expanded Six Flags, like, a lot. In January of 2007, the company reevaluated the parks they were meaning to sell and decided that Magic Mountain, being a park in the Los Angeles area, was too valuable to sell, due in part to the park gaining more traction and all that stuff. More people were going. Every other park they reevaluated, though, was not as lucky, however, as they were all sold as a package and remained operating without the Six Flags name. In 2007, Cyclone was demolished, and as was Flashback in 2008. Causing Magic Mountain to lose its tie with Cedar Point for the most roller coasters. While they had never beat Cedar Point, they had tied many times, and this was set them back 2 coasters. Instead, Magic Mountain began focusing on families, with the addition of a Thomastown area in 2008. That same year, a museum was added to the Sky Tower, Magic of the Mountain. It contained many historical facts and artifacts from the park's history, including an old horse from the carousel, an old Goliath car shell, and an old King Troll costume, among many more artifacts, models, and concept art. As of 2012, it seems the museum has closed, with all artifacts being gone, and the tower closed the last 2 times I visited. After PSY Clone was demolished, something had to be added, and that something was a new wooden coaster, Terminator Salvation: The Ride. Opening in 2009, it was in the same location as Cyclone and featured new elements such as tunnels, mist sprayers, and other special effects. 2 years later in 2011, the coaster is rethemed to Apocalypse. Also that year, 2009 to 2011, Six Flags CEO at the time, Mark Shapiro, told the Los Angeles Times that they intended to build a new coaster in 2010 and add a new children's area called Wiggles World in 2011, as well as an expansion to the water park, probably also in 2011. On October 14th, 2010, a video leaked detailing the company's plans for the park in the 2011 season, and it was officially announced along with all the other things about an announcement on the 20th. The first change that was announced was a retheme of the kiddie coaster, Mr. Six's Dance Coaster, to Roadrunner Express, as well as the retheme of Superman the Escape to Superman Escape from Krypton. Hey, we've talked about that before. And the final announcement was the addition of a brand new, beloved coaster, the Intamin Zaxspin Green Lantern First Flight. The coaster would bring Magic Mountain to 18 coasters, giving it the title of most coasters in one park, finally beating out Cedar Point, a title it still holds to this day and seems intent on keeping. Later that year, the company intended to remove most non-Warner Bros. Theming from the park by retheming areas such as Thomastown to Whistle Stop Park and the wooden coaster Terminator Salvation the Ride to Apocalypse. Both renovations were done in 2011. At some point, Backshears renamed Gotham City Backlot, perhaps after the addition of Green Lantern, and as such, the company decided to retheme all the rides in the area to DC Comics, as they had been themed without an IP before. Retheming Grinder Gearworks to Wonder Woman Lasso of Truth, and Atom Smasher was made into Flash Speed Force. When did that happen? The section was also renamed DC Universe. When I asked when did that happen, I was asking when Grinder Gearworks and Atom Smasher were named that, because they weren't named that last time I mentioned them. Okay. I gotta keep up. I gotta keep myself up on the facts. In September of 2011, it was announced that the drop ride Lex Luthor Drop of Doom would be added to the supports of Superman in 2012, making it the tallest drop ride in the world at the time of opening. Also that month, it was announced that Deja Vu would be removed on October 16th, 2011, and be moved to Six Flags New England as Goliath, where it still operates. Though due to the popularity of the coaster, guests were allowed to ride after hours on the days leading up to its removal. It just keeps getting worse, for in October of that year, Logjammer was partially removed to make way for Full Throttle, though at the time the new coaster was only a rumor, which would be confirmed in August of 2012. The coaster would regain Six Flags the lead once again for the most coasters against Cedar Point at 18 when it opened in 2013. The coaster was built to have not only the tallest vertical loop in the world, but also be the first to have track on both sides of the spine, which occurs at the top of the top hat loop. The first Christmastime celebration in the park, Holiday in the Park, would occur in December of 2014 and continue annually ever since. In 2014, the park announced the closure of the park staple wooden coaster, Colossus. It would stop operating on August 16th, with an announcement being made on the 28th that the coaster would be renovated by Rocky Mountain Construction and would open as Twisted Colossus, opening in May of 2015. 2015 also saw the renovation of Revolution with a new paint scheme and new cars, eliminating the uncomfortable over-the-shoulder restraints. The coaster would open as the New Revolution in April of 2016. The Shooter Dark ride, Justice League Battle for Metropolis, was announced in September of 2016 and opened the following year, being nearly identical to rides installed in 6 other parks beforehand. That's classic Six Flags if you ask me, my god. In 2018, the park would announce West Coast Racers, a coaster built by Premier Rides that would claim to have 2 records, being the first launched racing coaster in the world and the first coaster with 4 launches in the world. However, don't try to pull a fast one on a Six Flags. Another coaster located in Ferrari World in the UAE already holds these records. At least the coaster can claim to be at least the 19th coaster at the park. However, anyone who's looked up how many roller coasters are at Magic Mountain recently will be like, hey, they already have 19. Is that including it? No, it is not. You want to know what it's including? It's including Green Lantern First Flight, which is being removed and moved to La Ronde in Canada, And that would mean that West Coast Racers will not be the 20th coaster in the park, which means that they will not have 20 coasters by 2020, which is catchy as all hell. But no, they might have 20 coasters by 2021, but like, that's just not as good.